Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine a battlefield so high up in the mountains that the air is too thin to breathe, and the cold itself is a weapon. This wasn't a war in some desert or jungle. This was a battle fought on the literal roof of the world. So let's get into the incredible story of the Kargil War. Yeah, that quote just nails it, doesn't it? We're talking about altitudes where just surviving is a full-time job. Forget about fighting a war. This landscape of ice and rock wasn't just a setting. It was an active enemy, shaping every single decision, every battle, and every act of heroism. So, you might be asking yourself, how on earth did this happen? Well, the 1999 war didn't just pop up out of nowhere. No, this was more like a volcano erupting after decades of pressure building up between India and Pakistan. I mean, just look at this timeline. 3 wars already fought. But the real game changer, the one you've got to pay attention to, is in 1984, Operation Meghdoot. That's when India took control of the Siachen Glacier, the highest battlefield on the planet. For Pakistan, this was a massive strategic blow, and from that point on, you better believe they were looking for a way to get even. And this is where they saw their opening. See, in the Kargil area, there was this kind of unwritten rule. The winters are so brutal, I'm talking minus 50 degrees, avalanches just unbelievably deadly, that both sides would pull back from their highest posts. They just leave them empty. And it was this agreement, this perceived weakness, that became the key to Pakistan's entire surprise attack. So, during that winter of 98-99, while those Indian posts sat empty, a secret plan was put into motion. An operation that was about to shatter the silence of the Himalayas in the most brutal way possible. And what was the plan? Well, it was codenamed Operation Bhadra, and wow, it was ambitious. We're not talking about some small border skirmish. The goal was to sneak in, grab all the major peaks overlooking the main highway to Leh and Srinagar. Think of it like cutting a major artery, and basically trap India's forces in Ladakh. The end game? Force India to the negotiating table over Siachen. Everything was going perfectly for Pakistan. Their soldiers, disguised as irregulars, were slipping into those empty posts. It was a flawless surprise attack. But they overlooked one tiny, crucial detail. A detail that would change everything. You'd think some high-tech spy satellite would be the first to spot the invaders, right? Nope. The alarm was raised by a local shepherd, a man named Tashi Namgyal, who was just out looking for his missing yak. He saw these armed men where nobody was supposed to be, and his report to the army was the single thread that unraveled the whole invasion. So the army gets this report and sends a small 5-man patrol led by a young captain, Sorab Kalia, to go check it out. And what happened next was just horrific. The patrol was captured, weeks later their bodies were returned, and the evidence of torture was undeniable. In that moment, all doubt vanished. This wasn't some small group of militants, this was the Pakistani army. This was war. Okay, so the gloves are off. India launches Operation Vijay, a massive military counteroffensive. But the challenge they were facing was just insane. It was literally an uphill battle in every sense of the word. Just look at this comparison. It tells you everything you need to know. Pakistan had the ultimate advantage, the high ground. They're sitting pretty in fortified bunkers looking right down on you. Meanwhile, the Indian soldiers had to climb straight up sheer cliffs of ice and rock, completely exposed to gunfire, all while struggling to breathe in the thin mountain air. It was a tactical nightmare. So what do? How do you even begin to fight that? Well, the answer came booming from the valleys below. The Bofors howitzers. These guns became absolute legends. Day and night, they just rained fire on those Pakistani bunkers, smashing them to pieces from miles away. They were the key that unlocked the door for the infantry to even have a chance. Now, the big guns were crucial, for sure, but this war, at its heart, wasn't won by machines. It was won by people. It was won by a kind of courage that's, well, it's almost impossible to comprehend. And the stories from those peaks are simply unforgettable. And if you talk about Kargil, you have to talk about Captain Vikram Batra. This guy, after an absolutely brutal fight to capture a critical peak, 0.5140, he gets on the radio, and his victory call, Ye dil mange more, this heart wants more. That phrase became a rallying cry for the entire nation. Tragically, he later gave his life trying to save another soldier, an unbelievable hero posthumously awarded India's highest honor, the Param Veer Chakra. And then there was Lieutenant Manoj Pandey. Listen to what he wrote in his diary before the war even started. Some goals are so worthy, it's glorious even to fail. That tells you everything about his mindset. In his final assault, riddled with bullets, he just kept going, clearing bunker after bunker. His very last words were an order to his men to capture the final objective. Just awe-inspiring. He too was awarded the Paramveer Chakra. So, fueled by that kind of incredible courage, how could the tide not turn? Slowly but surely, peak by grueling peak, India started taking its territory back. But this victory, it was not cheap. It came at a terrible, terrible price. By the end of July, it was over. Facing pressure from all sides, Pakistan was forced to withdraw. And on July 26th, India officially declared that all its territory had been reclaimed. That day is now remembered every year as Kargil Vijay Divas, or Victory Day. But let's talk about the cost of that victory. 527. That's the number of Indian soldiers who made the ultimate sacrifice on those frozen peaks. And it's so important to remember that's not just a statistic. Every single one of those numbers was a person, a son, a father, a husband who never came home. And on top of that, more than 1,300 soldiers were wounded, many with injuries that would change their lives forever. The price for defending the nation's borders was just immense. You know, the soldiers of Kargil fought and won a war that by all accounts seemed impossible. They did their duty. And that kind of leaves us with a heavy question, doesn't it? What about us? How do we live our lives in a way that actually honors that kind of incredible sacrifice? It's something to really think about.